Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of I Never Knew or Inc. podcast by Life Coach Maureen. This is Maureen Scanlon, your host today. I am an award-winning author, a podcast host, Obvious. Thanks, Captain Obvious. I am a certified life coach, relationship expert, former codependent, former self-sabotager, and Jill of all trades, I should say.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is kind of fun today, guys. I'm so excited for all of you listeners to be here. I found Reggie on a site where we match with guests and hosts for podcasting, and he's actually a podcast host. So I love it when I get to turn the tables. Should I be really, really hard on him, or should I just like chill it out? I think we'll just chill it out today. So let me tell
Very
you,
nice.
let me tell you guys about Reggie. So Reggie Johnson was born in Germany and raised in Atlanta, and he's still in Atlanta. He used to do a show on the radio on Star 92.3 in Mississippi. I feel like I should say that in a radio voice. On Star 92.3 in Mississippi. Okay, I have a terrible DJ voice, hence why I'm only a podcast host. So he started this around 2014, and it was named Tech Talk, which was about tech info. In 2016, after moving back to Atlanta, he wanted to get back into radio, and a friend suggested he start a podcast. Fast forward to 2018, he did, and it's called Reg in ATL. And he's been doing that. He loves doing his show, and he also has a story, which is how I connected with him as well. I want to know. We want to know. Inquiring minds want to know what is Reggie's background story that you never knew that brought you to the successful man you are. So welcome, Reggie. Hello.
Oh, that's just such an amazing intro right there. I'm going to just record that and play it back for myself constantly.
I love it. I will definitely let that be your intro. Like, here's Reggie. How are you, my man? He said it's hot in Atlanta, and I challenged him to Arizona hot. So I think
it's not that hot. Absolutely. You win.
That's why I'm half dressed here. Those of you on YouTube, you can see. I mean, I can't wear clothes and put my hair down. So, Reggie, we're just gonna have like coffee talk. What is your story? Tell us, since I never knew is our theme. Tell me the things that happened in your younger days that were really struggles that now you look back and you're like, man, I need to be the voice of my younger self.
You know, Maureen, I think it's a couple of things. It's one more financial than one is kind of like life, which sometimes they kind of coincide a bit as far as, they kind of bleed over. So young, when I was very young, because I had my daughter when I was like 20 or 21 when I had my daughter. When I think about it now, that's just I can't believe it. That I had her so young. So at the time, Maureen, I thought that my life was going to be like over then. Like I thought life was over. Like when she told me that she was pregnant, I think I passed out. And it was at a friend, and I think I literally passed out. And I was like, well, that's life. And at 20 and 21, I turned in my life card is what I felt I was going to really be doing at that point. But one of the things, and maybe this is something that if other people have had children before, they can attest to, is that I'm not really like a child-friendly person. It's not something I ever wanted in my life growing up. You know what I mean? But it does awaken something in you that I feel like is kind of innate, that all people kind of have in them. And maybe it's like, just laying in wait, waiting to be activated, so to speak. And that can be just perseverance and just getting through life. I think humans, we persevere, as you've seen through history. Humans tend to persevere through a lot harder times than what me and you go through here now. Like we talked about the heat just now. We could at least turn on some air conditioning or come into. We don't have to just be out there in it. You know what I mean? Just suffering. But at one point humans were. So having a child is definitely one of them. Another is just dealing with finances in general. So let's see, let's go back to around 2011. I think it was probably around this time. and I had just broken up with my daughter's mother, and that was actually 2 or 3 years ahead of before that. And it was a time of transition for me, where I was transitioning out of that life into a life of having to now figure out everything differently. I gotta leave the house, and we're trying to figure things out. I still got a daughter and all that other stuff. And it came a time where I thought I had everything lined up. I had all my business together. I just got a new job. I felt really good about life. Then something happens. I don't have a car. I lose the job. And then I'm on like the verge of like eviction, because bills keep coming. Like they don't care if you lose your job or
No,
not.
no, that tax man comes knocking on the door. The Mr. Bill comes knocking on that door
Yeah,
every month, same time.
no matter what. So I was dealing with a lot of that at the same time. And it felt so overwhelming. Like I could even still, even thinking back to it, Maureen, now, I can still remember the feeling a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? I remember what that felt like. And it felt like the walls were kind of closing in. But things eventually got better, with a lot of perseverance, and a lot of specific things. I don't know if you want me to name the specific things, how they got better, but they did get better.
It's your story, man. Tell it like you wanna.
Okay, so one of the things, and it is funny. So I'm gonna definitely, if anybody finds themselves in this unfortunate situation, at least I could tell them how I did it, and they could be like, "Wow, I can't believe that actually worked for you." Um, so I was about, at the time, about a month and a half behind, I think, on my rent at the time, and I had to go in, and I had zero job. So first thing I did was I went and got like a serving job somewhere, and it was very humbling, because at that time I think I was like 29, 30, and I was like, I should be over this now. I'm supposed to be rich by now, of course. And I clearly was not. So I went and got a server job at a place here in the local area named Canoe. And it's like a high fine dining place. It's a nice place if anybody is out in Atlanta. Um, so I went and got a server job there. The day I got the job, I come back to the leasing office, and I met with the leasing lady, and I said, I can't pay my rent. And she's like, you're, at the time, I think, Maureen, I'm gonna give exact numbers. I think at the time it was about 1,500, pushing about 2 grand or so. In
Yeah.
total, like with fees, because the fees add up quick. So with the fees and everything, they all added up very fast. It's about 2 grand behind. And I had zero at the time. So I tell her my situation. I said, I just got a job, and it's a serving job. So I'm going to make money every day, and I'm going to come back in here every single day and give you what I make every day. Um, which she thought was crazy. She was like, well, I can't really submit it like that, but maybe she liked the fact that I was so upfront with her, because
Yeah.
she's like, I'm gonna keep an envelope, and you just bring it in every day, and I'm just gonna put the money in an envelope every day.
Wow. I like it. She saw you were
And
making an effort.
right. So for people out there, I tell my daughter this, and I'll tell anybody this: make the effort, because you just never know, Maureen. Like if you make an effort, you never know what can happen, right? Because this was
Yeah.
just a conversation, and I didn't know she was gonna accept it. And I literally did that for like a month or two, literally every single day. I give out. It became such a routine to walk by the leasing office, give her what I made, and then go home.
Wow. I love it. I love it. No, and it really shows that you were a man of your word. You weren't like, oh, I'm just going to come in and appease her for a minute. No, you were like, I'm going to do it. And showing that commitment and that showing up in everything in life, I think is important. And I get it. In the crisis, the financial crisis of 2008, I'm a single mom, and my mortgage was like ridiculously expensive. It was, I mean, almost 3 grand. And I'm in a corporate job, and I'm on salary, so I have no ability to work overtime or do anything.
Mm,
My company was pretty stingy about raises. And so I did the same thing. I got a serving job, and I would work all day, corporate job, and then work 4 to, I think, 10 at a serving job at night.
wow.
And you're right. It was like just having that cash in hand. That was, my son was, I think, 13 at the time. And it was like, I needed that money for his activities. I needed it for grocery, just that little bit to get me through so I wouldn't lose the house. So I love me a good serving job. Plus, for me, it was like something I didn't have to think about. It was very physical, where my day job was very mental. So it was a nice
Oh, nice,
exchange.
nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
So how long did that go on for you? For me total, I would say that server job lasted about 6 months total, but I was out of my financial situation in like 2 to 3 months. 'Cause I was just working all the time, Maureen. Like I was working, 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 working. That's all I knew
As
at
a
that time.
server, that's an easy thing to do too. I mean, there's always shifts available. There's
Right.
always
No shortage.
it is very, very flexible. That's for sure. You can run yourself into the ground with a serving job, but I also liked serving because it felt like a big family, didn't it?
Yes, always. And I don't know if that's just industry wide, Marine, but it always feels like that. Maybe it's because we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to
Yeah.
reach our goals. You have some people that are there that are lifers, and they are there for people who may not think they're there. They're there. People who work there for a long time, and then you have a lot of transitional people. So
Yeah.
you have a good fit of both, and everybody's just it is so much of a family type energy, and I'm not sure how many industries have it, but it definitely seems like the hospitality industry. I'm not sure if it's the same in like hotels and stuff, but it definitely was with the servers and bartenders where I worked at.
I'm still friends with people that I did that serving job with.
Really?
And you're right, though. You have to kind of humble yourself because, here I had been in nursing, I'd been in the medical field, I'd been a supervisor, and I'm in this, pretty cool position that a lot of people wanted. I had a company car and could work from home, but it still wasn't paying that $3,000 mortgage among everything else. And I remember talking to customers feeling like I needed to justify why I'm a server. I'm like, well, this is just my second job. Well, this is just, and that's, I look back now and I'm like, why did you do that, Marine? Just do you. But I wasn't in the mindset as I am now. So,
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point there, Maureen, because I kind of had that thought pattern at first when I was there, because I'm there with like younger people. They're in like school and stuff, and I'm like, wow, it's definitely a younger group of people in here. But I had the luxury of working with some people who were older as well, so I wasn't like the old. I had some people that were the lifers that were like a little bit older than me,
yeah.
and then I had the people that were younger. And now I so much agree with you in the sense that it has to be. We can't talk, at least me personally, I'll speak for myself. I can't talk down on a job that got me out of that financial situation that I was
Yeah.
in, because it wasn't my corporate jobs that got me out. It was that job got
Right?
me out of my financial situation, you know?
Shoot, I would have done anything. I would have done anything. I mean, wink, wink, and just about anything. And people were like encouraging, and this really bothered me in that financial crunch. People were encouraging me. My daughter, in meaning well, she said, Mom, just give the house up, let it go into foreclosure. They were saying at the time, oh, it'll only be on your credit for like 3 years or something. And I said,
Mm,
no, if God brought me to it, he'll bring me through it. And I worked too darn hard to get this, and I need stability for my son. So
for sure.
I was like, no, I am not giving this up. And then as it turned around, they were doing those quick sales or whatever. And as it turned out, in the long run, it did not come off people's credit, and it ruined people's
Oh,
credit.
wow.
And yeah, it was really a shame that people were fooled. So that on that front, just follow your intuition and just do what you need to do to help yourself. You brought up something really good. You
Mhm.
said perseverance. I
Mm,
think throughout our humankind existence from Neanderthal to today, I think it's been adaptation. What do you
yeah,
think?
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a form of evolution, to so to speak. Like you are learning from the past mistakes, past human beings' mistakes. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's part of the um it's part of the human journey, so to speak. Learning from other mistakes, making things better for the people that come after you. And we're all just kind of evolving through time. Humanity's gonna look very different 50, 100 years from now than it looks, now, or 50, 100 years in the past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that adaptability does help. Do you find when you talk to people that people have that adaptability, or is that harder for some people than others that you kind of come across?
As a life coach, especially, I find there's this 50-50. There's a definitive line between growth mentality and stuck mentality. and you are one or the other. There's no gray area. People will say,
Really?
well, people say all the time, I'm a work in progress. Well, sometimes that means you're trying it hard every single day. You're in a growth mentality. And then there's people that are like, I just am who I am. And, I'm a work in progress. I'm never going to be perfect. That's sort of the cop out, stuck mentality. Well, this is what life handed me, or this is how I was raised. So it is a defining line, I think, between choosing and not choosing. What do you think?
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Because a lot of times it's easy to be resigned to what you feel fate is, right? In a situation like it's fate and this is just my fate.
Yeah.
Well, you're given a brain, and if you do have all your bodily functions, because some people don't, and understand that, then you are changing your fate. You're in charge of it to a certain degree. Like, you have life and circumstances, and the circumstances are, they might be what they are. Like, when I couldn't pay my bills, that was my circumstance. I could have said, hey, this is fate, and life will see me through it, and did not put in any effort.
Exactly. Someone's going to pay my mortgage. I don't know how, but someone will. Remember that there was what is it that, what do they call that? What, not an analogy. That story where it's raining and then it's flooding, and the neighbors come by with the boat, and they're like, come on, get in the boat. We're going to help you. It's flooding. You got to get out of here. And he's like, no, God will help me. And the water rate, the water raises higher. And then, like, I don't know, I'm just going to ad lib here, but, and then like a giraffe comes, to the window and says, hey, get on my back and I'll take you out of here. No, God will help me. He goes to the roof, the water has risen, and a helicopter comes, and get on the helicopter, we'll save you. And he's like, no, God'll help me. He drowns, he goes to heaven, and he's like, God, why didn't you help me? And he's like, I sent a boat, a giraffe, and a helicopter. It's I forget what they call it, a parable, I think it is. Right? Don't we do that too? We think, well, it's gonna be fixed my way, or it's gonna happen my way, when it's right in front of you and you did it. You're like, there's a job, a serving job. I can do it and I will do it. Pretty
Yeah,
simple.
I find that a lot of people, they just want things on their time, Maureen. It's in their comfort zone, so to speak. Like, if you are hoping for growth in your comfort zone, and I'll tell you certain people who do this. Like, so there's certain people that I know personally who will never answer a phone call they don't know. They never answer it, Maureen. Like, if they don't know the phone call, never answered in my life.
That's
Now, I think that if you are in this position where you can just never answer a phone call that you don't know, then things gotta be pretty good in your life, right? Like, your ecosystem of what's in your life already, it's gotta be pretty good. I don't need to answer the phone. It is only negativity on the other line. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? My life's already great. So if people have that kind of life, then I get it if they're where they want to go. If people are starting a business, if people are starting new opportunities, you're going to need probably new people, Maureen, in your life at some point. People that you've never met, right?
Right.
You're going to need them at some point. So then, if you're only answering numbers from people that you know already, then it's harder to expand that system. And some people got to call you like several times for you to pick that number up. And listen, I'm not perfect. I'll tell you, I've been there. Well, my daughter knows sometimes you got to call me like twice. If she calls me from a different number, she has to call me like twice, and I'll pick it up instantly. Versus somebody calls me and then maybe I'm waiting for the message. Maybe I'm waiting to see if they send a follow-up text, see if it's somebody I know. And I think part of that is just telemarketers ruining it for people, because they're just selling you, you're rushing, you're maybe on the treadmill or something. You try to answer the phone and it's somebody trying to sell you insurance or something. And you're like, I cannot believe I even answered this. So I definitely get it.
Every single call that I get that it's not from someone I don't know, because as soon as I know someone, they're in my phone with a contact. Now, I'm not guaranteeing I'll even pick their phone calls up either. My family just knows. They're like, I'll call you back for you to not answer it again, Mom. But, the thing is, I come from the answering machine generation where we could
Yeah, I
filter.
remember
I
the answering machines. I remember those.
leave
Absolutely.
a voicemail or text. You don't need to pick that dang phone up. I don't have time for phone calls now. I mean, you can get a hold of me in so dang many ways. I mean, there's my business line, there's my email, there's my LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's Instagram, for crying out loud. No one, it's not like I'm missing an opportunity from a phone call. It's find a way to get to me. If you have that connection with me, then you have the information you need to connect with me. If you don't, um yeah, usually it is those telemarket. No, I'm going to say
Yeah, a good
99.999%.
percentage of the time it is for me too. Same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Do people leave voicemails in your life? It's like people rarely ever leave voicemails that are like in my life. Like they call, maybe they'll say a word, maybe they leave a voicemail, but it's so rare for people in my life leave voicemails, which is strange because we used to have whole machines just dedicated just to that.
I know. You know what? Can I tell you a secret? Sometimes I know I need to call someone and like nurture a relationship. And then when like their voicemail comes on, I'm so excited because I
Are you
don't,
happy?
yeah. Because I can like say everything I wanted to say, like my news, and then be like, oh, good. I don't have to be on the phone for an hour.
Just keeping it succinct,
Is that
basically.
is that bad? Is that so bad?
No, I've done it. I've done it a few times, and also I'm very guilty of if I don't want to hang out with somebody, but I said I was going to, and then I
Oh,
call them, and the skies open up, and they don't pick up the phone, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness they didn't answer. I tried my hardest. I really wanted to be out there with you, buddy, but you didn't answer.
yeah.
Here's me showing up on your voicemail instead of showing up in person.
I tried. I tried. Even though I let it ring for like half a second, you're like, oh, no answer. It's like, oh well, missed him. Maybe next time. I love that. What I have learned though, and that's like boundary statements that um a lot of people will say, excuse me, that excuse, oh, something came up, or just tell them this. I have learned to say no when I mean no. And
Yes,
it's
yes.
actually been freeing because you feel people, the reason you make up a excuse, right, is because you feel guilty for saying no. Well, when you remove the guilt, it's easy. It's really easy. I'm like, I don't want to. Don't feel like it. No, not going to do that. And I work on these boundary statements with my clients, and they're like really soft. They're like, I don't think I feel like doing that. I'm like, just say no. Just say, I don't want to do it. But it's funny how we're programmed to be nice, be kind. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But we got to stop
Yeah.
sugarcoating stuff, right?
Do you feel like that's something that people come to you with a lot? Like, do you see that in a lot of people? Because I've discovered saying no in business is very easy for me. Saying no when it comes to hanging out takes a little bit more effort on my part. But I've said no so many times that now they don't even ask. And then sometimes I'm like, why didn't you ask me? Like, I want to have I want to be able to say no. Like, you should invite me so I can tell you I'm busy. I don't have time.
Right? Give me that opportunity to affirm that I'm good at boundaries. All right. God, don't take that from me. Don't steal that from me.
Right. I worked hard for that.
I'm actually the opposite. I'm better at saying no in my personal life than I am in business.
Oh,
And
interesting.
especially as a life coach. Um, I have to be very, very careful because there are some clients that I tend to make myself available to all the time. And, there was a client in particular. I was on vacation a couple weeks ago, and I actually said, hey, I'm going to be on vacation. And they said, well, can you coach from your vacation? And I didn't say no. And I was so mad at myself because I had to go off. I was in Boston. I had to go off and find a quiet place for an hour and coach. And I never regret coaching and helping someone, but I regret that I didn't put myself first because I never take that time for vacation, and maybe twice, three times a year. And so I'm bad at saying no because I always feel like you need me. And when you need me as
Right.
especially when you're helping people through mental stuff, you feel like I feel guilty. So I got to let go of that guilt. And people don't show up sometimes for when we have a scheduled appointment, and I have to learn how to be more assertive in that. So you and I are opposite. How are you so strong in business without having to say no?
It's just work-life balance. I am extreme proponent of work-life balance. Like I don't like, and that's why I could never do jobs like lawyer or doctor or detective or something like that, because those are heavy jobs. You know what I mean? And it's hard. Not only do you have a crazy time commitment in general, but it's hard because a bad day at work is a very bad day at work, Maureen. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to separate my emotions from that, so I just stay away from those type of careers, because when you're dealing with a lot of human beings, even with your life coaching situation, I can see that, because you're thinking that this person needs me for a certain amount of emotional support, and you don't know what would happen if they don't get that said emotional
Yes.
support, right? So for me personally, I get into businesses where I know I can kind of turn it off, and I guard that kind of like with my life when I'm discussing business with my job and stuff like that. I have those solid boundaries they know. And I tend to try to get that in most jobs that I've gone through, in life.
Good for you. Well, I used to work in an ER trauma center on graveyards.
My goodness.
Heavy, 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 heavy.
Right, right.
Whew. I remember my very first night in the ER, and a girl ran in. She was holding her sweatshirt over her, and I took her into this conference room, and I was like, what's going on? She had been sexually assaulted by her boss in the parking lot. Yeah, that was my very, very first one. And I think I draw in stuff like that. I draw in people that need comfort, people that need, that kind of love and that help with traumatic stuff, because that's how my life was too. Everything was a crisis. Every single day was just crisis. So I really have always been this person that people are drawn to. Why are we This is my podcast. How come I feel like you're interviewing me? Here we are. But I feel like that's really important. You're right. And I always tell my clients, it's if you're not a brain surgeon or a cardiologist, then it can wait till tomorrow. But when it comes to my own being able to do that, my empathy a lot of times overrules my ability to say no or do my self-care. And so,
I hear that a
it's
lot. I hear that a
yeah.
lot, Maureen, especially in like social working people who do any type of social work. They tell me that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just I think there's a deeper level of emotional attachment. I mean, it's one thing if I'm selling a product and, someone buys a product and okay, they contact customer service. I don't have this emotional attachment to that,
For
but
sure.
I have an emotional attachment to people's success, and especially in coaching. I'm so passionate about them succeeding. I mean, their success is my success. And I care. I genuinely care. My clients are my friends. They become my family. I mean, I'm definitely different than therapists and counselors where it's like, okay, your hour's up, we got to go. I determined not to be that. And so I always say, go ahead and reach out, text me, or, if you're having something going on. And it has helped many of my clients through panic attacks. Just
Oh, that's good.
say, hey, get through this. Here, just do this. Here's some techniques. Here's some coping. How are you feeling about this? And just letting them feel like there's a lifeline on that other end. So
And sometimes that's all people need, right? Somebody who's just gonna listen, a sounding board. People who are just gonna be an active listener, and not everybody has that skill. That can be a skill in of itself, to be honest with you.
it is, isn't it? Oh,
Hmm.
that's a tough one. So you end up, and I have to say, kudos to you, because you also gave an example of your daughter, to say, you know what, you want something, you got to work for it. It's not going to come to you, like you said. Don't leave it up to fate. So, after your serving experience, how did things move on for you?
So after the serving experience, I was also at the time I was reading books or like self-help books and stuff like that. And I read a Dale Carnegie book, How to Make Friends and Influence People, I think around that time, and another book that he had written at the time. So those were kind of helping as well. I got to definitely put that out there. But after that, I had a friend of mine who's opening a computer company in Mississippi, a computer store, I should say, like just repair and sales and stuff like that in Mississippi. He called me and was like, "Hey, do you want to come down here? We're gonna open a store." It was in his hometown, a little town called Grenada, Mississippi. And he was like, "We're gonna open this store, and I want you to kind of come down and help me open it." So I was out of here.
Wow, you were just like, I'm out. Peace out. I
I'm
gotta
out.
go.
Absolutely. I left
Nice.
that job and then went out there.
Did you have background in technology, in computers?
It came from, and it's interesting how this stuff happens. And this is one of the things that why you should never stop learning, because I didn't have any technical expertise in it. I was just a nerd, and I still am. I just had technical expertise in doing it, and I would do it for him. So I would come to his house and fix his computer and stuff like that. And it was funny because when he did start the company, he was like, we had actually, and let me back up here a little, Maureen, because I want to say we started doing stuff like on Craigslist, like maybe a year before he moved out there. So we had already started, and then he had the idea of doing what we were doing here out there. But when we back up, when he decided to start, because that was like a year prior. So maybe a year here, 2011, 12-ish. And then I moved out there 2013.
Oh, okay.
So, and then 2012 is when I went through all the stuff, as far as like having to get the server job and all that stuff. So we had started it, and we were doing just like Craigslist repairs and things like that. And sometimes you don't know how good you are until you do something, Maureen. Like you just have to do it.
Yeah.
And I ended up after fixing his computer, he said, "Hey, can we, do you feel comfortable like, doing this for other people?" And I was like, "I've never done it for other people. I don't know. Like it's and having somebody else's computer is crazy. Like I don't know." So we got customers pretty instantaneously. We had some people we would drop, and our thing was, because we didn't have a shop, so we'd go to this, pick up your computer at your job and fix it, and it's fixed before you even get off your job. And that's what we used to say. That was like, okay, you come in, let's say you work 9 to 5. We pick up your computer at 9. By 5, you'll have your computer back. You're leaving with a working computer.
Wow.
So that was our thing. And we started it on Craigslist, and it was called AccuTech Computer. So we did that for a while. And after doing that, you definitely get your confidence up because you've done a few now, And then when we moved out there, he was like, or when he moved back out there, he moved out there to take care of his mom, who was, I think she had cancer at the time. So he moved back out there for her. And then he was like, "Well, they need a computer store here. We should just do like a brick and mortar, and you should just move out here and all that stuff." So moved out there, and that started a whole different chapter in life.
Oh, I love that. You just make me like tingles, because do you ever notice in your life you have these before and afters? Like it's like your life is chunked up, and they always say every 7 years, your cells completely change in your body physically, but then there's supposed to be this every 7-year shift in what happens in your life. So I love when I hear stories, because everybody's like this before this happened and then the after this. So
Yes.
that was your after. All of a sudden,
Mhm.
I'm seeing confident Reggie. I'm seeing hope. I'm seeing abundance. You're like, okay, I've got a career. And I'm going to say this, and this is going to be probably controversial, and I really don't care. I am all about technical schools and OJT, baby. I really, really am.
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
and I've seen both sides. I have a daughter who went to college, and she had 2 majors and a minor, and struggled with the school loans. Geez, couldn't think of
Mhm.
it. And then I went to college, but just not just a associate. So I didn't do the full university. And then I also have seen people who have none, and they just got into the workforce, and they did the same thing like you and I, just kind of got into it and learned on the job. So I'm kind of a fan of that, of what you just said. That's how we learn, by observing and just doing it. We got to jump in there, right?
We do, and that's so difficult. And I understanding now, if you had told me that was going to happen, Maureen, I would have been like, no way. There's just no way that's going to happen. Um, But sometimes you have to, like, life like pushes you a little bit, right? It's like a virtual push, like you're pushing you
Yes.
in the pool, so to speak, and you're going to have to swim. So that helped me a ton. And it kind of led to where we are now, because if I didn't do that, I would not have been on the radio there. You know, that because I got on the radio in Mississippi because of people coming into that shop and not wanting to ask questions. People would come into the shop, Maureen, and it'd be like computers, a computer repair shop. Okay. So people would bring in their computer monitor and they'd be like, fix my computer. And I'd be like, where is it at? And they'd say, here it is. This is it. And it's a monitor. And I'd say, um, and people would be so embarrassed. Like they were so embarrassed to say anything. Like they would rather bring that monitor in than call and ask or anything like that, or ask any questions. Just here's my monitor. And now you got to make another trip and go back and get your computer. But after having several, and I had several things like that, some people will bring in like their cable modem, like, here's my computer. And you'd be like, all
Oh my
right.
God.
And okay, so I called we had joined a local business, better business, local chamber of commerce. That's what we joined. And in that local chamber of commerce, there was a guy there named Greg Slotsky who had a radio station starting 92.3, and he was on the radio there all the time. So I got his number through that chamber of commerce, and I literally just called this guy directly and was like,
Oh,
Greg, what can we do? Like, is there something that we can do to get a message out from a tech perspective? So I can just give general tech information, just general stuff, broad strokes, and then people can be somewhat educated. And then I could plug my store at the end. I would plug my store at the end. And there were quick shows. They weren't like 30, 40-minute shows. They were very quick shows. But they ran all day though. So they would run throughout the day. So people would come in, quoting parts of the show. So I would have never, if I'd never moved to Mississippi to do that computer situation, I would not probably be on here with you right now. It's amazing how
mhm.
life works out, right?
Yes, full circle. Because I was thinking that I'm going, that's a big jump. How did he go from this tech job to radio? And that's the thing, though. It's taking those risks, it's taking those chances in life. And now I'm at a point where I want to be scared. I want to be nervous when I'm presented with something because I always know that's the next thing for me. And it's uncomfortable, but I think when we embrace the being uncomfortable, I think, and have this sort of more excitement built around it, then you know you're moving forward. If you don't get excited or nervous, I think you're just kind of mundane and you're accepting mediocrity, right?
I call that the treadmill of life, is what I call people. They're running
Yes.
fast, but going absolutely no place.
Yeah. Hamsters on that wheel.
Yeah,
It's,
exactly.
and some people are okay with that. And I think
For
that's
sure.
really a difficult thing for me to fathom. I look at some of my family members, they're just okay with that, just flatline, sort of flatline. And I'm not saying that um, this is not for them to be scared and do the things that I do to put myself out there. But I do think we're all made for more. And I think if we are flatline, we're missing so much. I think it's Abraham Hicks. She talks about how you've got to go below the surface of the ocean. It's good to be floating, but you've got to go below the surface of the ocean too, because there's deeper things to see. You're going to miss.
Absolutely.
Think about that. If you were just on a raft on the ocean, you're going to miss all that stuff, all the shipwrecks and all the neat animals and sharks. Think of how much is below the surface that we
Way
miss it.
more than that's what's on top, right? You're
Yeah.
missing the majority.
Yeah. Which is why I think going through life with superficial relationships is that same thing. You're just kind of floating along on the waves. That's great, but you're missing so much. So
For
that
sure.
that brings me to asking you, what do you think what do you think people's impressions are of you when they meet you?
Um, I've been told outgoing, that's pretty much it. I've been told just outgoing. Maybe because I enunciate, they feel like I'm smart. It doesn't take. That's a very low bar. Enunciation is a very low bar for intelligence, in my opinion. But I do get that a lot, and I think that just comes from growing up in a very diverse areas. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
moving around all the time because I moved around a lot when I was younger, and that
Oh.
was really horrible for me when I was younger, and has paid extreme dividends now as an adult. Oh my god, it's probably one of the biggest thing that happened to me in my life that was kind of like unintended because at the time I hated it. I hate having to make friends every year, Maureen. Like I hated having to. I would be culturally around different places, so I'd be in certain places where I might be the only black guy. Then I might be go to other places where there's no other races but black, and then I'll go to other places where there's a little bit more mixture of diversity, where there's all types. There's Middle Eastern, there's Asian, there's Hispanic. Um, but being around all the different cultures and having to make friends every year makes all my makes communicating with people just super easy. It's just very easy to me now.
Yeah.
It comes super easy.
Well, I'm going to just take a wild guess because I lived in Germany for 4 years, and I'm just going to assume maybe we had a military dad.
Yeah,
Military
Frankfurt.
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 Okay, I was in Mannheim. We were not too far away. I was actually I had to live on the economy in Lampertheim, and then we got transferred to Karlsruhe. So I was an army wife, and this was back
Oh
in,
wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So it was 1990 to 1994, and my daughter was born in Germany. So when I saw that you were born in Germany, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what's up? Army, military, right? Oh my god. I love Germany. I loved it there. And I was 19 years old. So I feel you on the moving around thing cuz I grew up in the
Hmm.
same place here in Arizona, the same town. Ugh, and I couldn't wait to get out. I get married
Really.
young. You say you had your child young. I got
Hmm.
married very young I got pregnant at 18 and got married at 19. So,
Wow.
yeah. And he, we weren't making any money. He joins the military, and then we ended up Germany was his first station right out of basic. With
Wow. Wow.
I
Straight
know.
to Germany, huh?
I
That's not
know.
like up the street. That's not even domestic.
This was like, "Wow, welcome to Army life." So, yeah, that was a lot, and he hadn't seen my daughter, be born. I went through the pregnancy by myself, the
Mm,
delivery by myself here at Luke Air Force
tough.
Base, and, he didn't get to see her till she was 3 months old, and
Wow.
at that point, I was like, "You better get us over there. You better get us over there," and so, yeah, long story short, I knew that, you were military, and military life growing up is not easy. I can only imagine. Now, did your dad he was a lifer? He stayed in military the full time, the 20 years?
No, because my dad unfortunately died very early. So my dad died when he was 20, I want to say six,
Oh my goodness.
26. I think I was like 6, 7-ish or so when he died.
Oh.
He died trying to save a kid in Virginia Beach. So a kid was drowning and he tried to save the kid and he ended up drowning himself. And they had like a military funeral and all that stuff. I remember the military funeral. I remember a little bits and pieces about him, but it was so long ago. And but I do remember the military funeral. I remember getting a letter from President Reagan and all that stuff, and it was really
Oh,
crazy, crazy
dad,
time.
a hero. Dad died a hero. Well, that explains a lot about who you are. You have hero genes in you. So
Yeah, well, at least I feel like I get all this good karma. I feel like any good karma I got, I'm like, man, my karma is gonna be built up. I mean, hey, you build up quite a bit of karma doing stuff
Yes,
like that. So I feel like I'm recipient of a lot of that. I tend to have good fortune for sure.
I love that. I mean, obviously, I'm so sorry that, you had to grow up without your dad, but he
It's
was
all
with
right.
you. He's still with you and shining down on you probably every day and smiling about what a great man you turned out to be. So, I want to ask you,
Mhm.
as we've got, look at us. This hour just flew. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I feel like I could I say that to every guest too. What is it? Just I'm like not time aware because I get so engrossed in my guests and people I talk to, and when they're fabulous, like who you are. So I always say this is the one thing. You say you're in Atlanta and you're marching downtown, and there's 100,000 people behind you, and you've got the banner. What does your banner say about your movement that you would like to see changed in the world?
Um, man, that's a good question. That's a good question because I'm very big on diversity, equality, and education, but they're all kind of coincide with each other, in my opinion. Um, if you are, if you haven't had the same experience that I've had growing up, and
Yeah.
you've not grown up in very diverse areas around all types of people, and when I mean diverse areas and all types of people, I'm not necessarily talking about just culture. I'm talking about diversity in thought. So how my life is now, I have people from all kinds of political leanings. I got people far right, I got people on the far left, I got people in between, I got all different kinds of cultures in my life, and I feel like that has rewarded me so much. Just having diversity of thought and having the different cultures and stuff. If I could somehow put that on a banner, which I have no clue what that banner would say. If I could
What?
put that on a banner
That's
somewhere,
a really really big banner. What you just
it's a long
said. So
banner.
yeah.
And we needed several people to hold that thing. Absolutely.
Seriously, it's going to take the 100,000 people to hold that banner. No, but I love that, and actually, I'm so glad you brought that up because obviously I've never lived your experience. I've never been a African American man. Um, but I find for me that assumptions are made about me. And you would look at me and be like, "What are you talking about, white chick? Like, normal suburb, whatever." People make a lot of assumptions about me and
For
they
sure.
really don't know me. And that is my only tie to even an iota of understanding of what it would be like to be a different race or to struggle culturally and to be really oppressed. So, do you think
Mm.
we're getting somewhere? Do you think we're doing better? Because you've been in all different aspects, like you said. And I'm going to say this before I interrupt you. Um, I loved the military because I feel like in the military there was less separation and less dividing of races. I feel like we were all one. We were all at the same pay grades. We were all fighting for the same thing. We had to have the
Mhm.
same housing. I really liked the community feel where no one looked at race in the military, at least in my experience. What do you think? Was that like
Um,
that for you?
I've been kind of very, very fortunate. So when I was over there in Germany, I was only over there maybe 3 years. So I was born there, so I remember none of it.
Yeah.
We moved from there to Alabama, which is where my mom is from. I was in Alabama for like 4 or 5 years, and I've been in Atlanta the rest of the time. Then we moved to
Mm.
Atlanta, and I've been in Atlanta from that point forward. I would say that I definitely do think that there's progression. I think sometimes people they don't realize, like, you're putting from a progression standpoint, you're putting one foot in front of the other, Maureen. Okay, you're putting one foot in front of the other, and sometimes you don't know how far you've gone until you look back. You look back and see, wow, I've traveled quite a distance, because when you're going, you only see the steps that you're making in front of you, and they're not very large steps. You're just putting
Yeah.
one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. You turn back, you've gone miles, and I feel like that's how progression is in general. I'm a big proponent of equality all the way around. So not necessarily just from like a race standpoint, but from a cultural standpoint, from a sexual orientation standpoint, from a
Yep.
gender standpoint, because there's um, different oppression going on at different places across the world. So it's kind of like the hand you're dealt. I feel like you're dealt a hand. Everybody's dealt a hand. And in that hand, maybe you aren't oppressed. Maybe you got to deal with an abusive parent. Maybe you have to deal with extreme poverty. Maybe there's going to be something in your hand that you're going to have to deal with. So
Yep.
that's like the ultimate equalizer in me from like a cultural standpoint. There's might be some people in my culture that are dealt a lot worse hands than I have. I grew up like maybe lower middle class, but it wasn't like
Mhm.
extreme poverty either. You know what I mean? So it was
Right.
like teetering there. So I saw people of all cultures. And that helped me as well, Maureen. Like seeing people of all cultures who were doing financially worse than me. Because you might have, if you're a Black person and you feel like everybody's just doing better than you, then you haven't had enough access to people. Like you don't know any better. If you feel like everybody's rich, that just doesn't look like you, then you don't know. It's like 5% of the earth is that way, maybe even less. We can jump to 1%. That means 99% of people aren't. But people, that seems to be lost on people. I would say that I feel like there is progression in the same sense that I have friends, and some of these friends, they're making like six figures, okay? And they'll say stuff like, I don't feel we've gone very far. And I'm like, you tell that to the person who was on the bridge, the Pettus Bridge, or, when the people had to mark across these bridge, the people, when you look back and they're having these hoses turned on them and dogs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, you need to tell that to them. Because I don't think they're going to agree with you. You know what I mean? Because you're looking very much at your own situation and feeling like things just haven't moved. You're not dealing with anything remotely close to what they were dealing with 50, 60 years ago, So those
Right.
things have to be acknowledged, in my point. If you're going to acknowledge the bad, you got to acknowledge the good. Like it all needs to be acknowledged, and I feel like there is progression, but everything takes time, Look at it from a sexual orientation standpoint. People used to say the F word all the time when referring to gay people.
Yep.
Now you can't say it. It's a different day, Maureen. Like there's a lot of the stuff that happened in our lifetime that was okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, the things that happened in our lifetime. When you fast forward 20, 30 years, you're a dinosaur using some of this language. Like if you were to say this stuff, people look at you like you're prehistoric, So I'm like, I never wanted to be that person, and I feel like there has definitely been some progression, in my opinion. Not more to go, but there has been some as well.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. And I always say that we were the unsupervised generation because we were just kind of on our own. I mean, really. I
Yeah.
mean, my parents were
at work.
yeah, and my parents were strict about what I could and couldn't do, but it wasn't like they were guiding. They were just like,
Yeah.
you can do this or you can't do this, and most of it was you can't do this. I mean, it's
too.
like be here when I need you to be here. Do this thing that I need you to do, and other than that, go run and go play. I mean, I remember in Arizona being running around barefoot and playing like in the irrigation at the school for 8 hours outside in
Wow.
110 degrees and, hose water and all. It was fun though, but I think our childhoods were fun. And I agree with you. I think we have progressed. I definitely think the LGBTQ have really come so far. And I'm so happy that
Yes.
people are allowed to be who they are. It's everything that I believe in as a life coach is just be who you are and who you came to be. And I agree with you. I think we've come a long way. And people are only looking at the chunk of their life. You can look at you and I from the 80s to now. It's like, oh, we haven't really changed that much. We didn't have that much discrimination in my school growing up. But yeah, go back to our parents growing
Right.
up.
Very different story, right?
Yeah, and in the 50s and 60s, exactly. And it looks a lot different. I think people need to talk to their grandparents more. I think we really need to connect with our older generation so those stories don't get lost, and so there still is that appreciation. But I do believe now that we have more of a mental health awareness and we have more of this freedom to speak of things and be vulnerable, and I especially value that men can be more vulnerable. You would not be able to talk like this when we were growing up. Like, our dads would not be talking about life and problems and feelings and all that. It just
A
didn't
lot of
happen.
internalizing.
Yes. And I
Yes.
think for me, and I would say most of my clients are men. And they move quickly once they come. They're very, very determined to make these changes because I think it's finally this allowing of feelings and emotions. It's like, yeah, let it out. Come on, let's talk about it. And I think we need to do better with our boys. I'm raising my 14-year-old grandson, and he's a very highly sensitive boy, and I'm letting him do that. I'm not telling him where he lived before. They were like, don't be a sissy, blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
wow. The worst thing that
Yeah.
you could say.
Right. And I'm not like that. I'm like, all right, let's talk about this. Or, teaching him how to control those emotions. So I agree with you. Do you think we're coming far overall as a human species?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just look back at what it was. Like, just look at the internet alone. Look at the fact that we can even have this conversation. You're on another side of the country and we're having this conversation alone. So that this show in of itself is a testament to kind of how far humans have gone in a relatively short amount of time. Even when you look at the United States in general, United States has been around for what, about 200 years ish, 250 years or so. So there's a lot of stuff a lot older than that. Like you look at England and China, and they're going back hundreds of years, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of
Right.
like we're only, when you think about it like that and say we're about 200, the United States alone, 250 years, that's about what? 4 generations? It's not a lot of generations in between like the founding of the country and then where we are here
Yeah,
today.
I hadn't thought of that. We're like the toddlers of the world, really, as
For
far
sure.
as
As a country standpoint, we're very young.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought of it that way. That's true. So we're doing good. We're evolving. There are some things we're going backwards on, and
For sure.
we'll get into that one. But that well, that's for me on your show.
right. Because we can go down those roads. There's definitely, you'll never have any shortage of people who just want to maintain a status quo, Maureen. Like they when you look at people, and I especially think about people who look back fondly on their formative years, and their formative years may have been like the 50s or 60s. From my culture standpoint, things weren't that great for us back then. So we don't look at it the same way. Somebody else might romanticize that time. That's the time when they didn't have the problems that they have it as adults. That's the time when everything was simpler to them,
Yeah.
So they look back fondly on those times, and it doesn't really work that way for everybody.
Great point. Really good point. So, tell me the basic, give me your elevator pitch of what it is that you never knew. What is it that you know now, old wise Reggie? What is it that
I
you
would
never knew?
I will say, Maureen, that you never know what you're capable of until you're put into that situation. And that's just something I couldn't fathom. I couldn't fathom being a father. I couldn't fathom that I could just go into a leasing office and just talk to a person and owe them thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And I have to be like, get out of here.
Yeah. Handing them tip money every day.
Right.
I freaking love it. But with that being said, I love that you said that we're gonna end this with you don't know until you put into it, but it's also you don't know what you're capable of if you don't do it. And
Facts.
I
Absolutely 100% facts. And that's the hardest part for a lot of people, Maureen, the doing, right? Because I
yeah,
can't say I wish I didn't have to. I didn't wish I didn't have to. But if I didn't, I probably wouldn't be here talking to
yeah,
you now. You see what
yeah.
I'm saying? So
Evolution. You wouldn't have
it's part of
evolved.
it.
We asked for these things. I mean, we say, I would never have asked to go through what I did, but I'm
Yes.
asking for expansion. You may not be asking for the exact situation you were in, but you were asking to expand and be a better version of yourself. And you are today because of it. So as we close it out, where can people listen to your podcast or find you? Any emails, anything you want to throw out there, any websites? It's your time to shine.
Okay. So reginatl is .com. It's just very simple. reginatl.com. Very creative name. I know I kicked around a few names, but I'm like, my name is Reggie and I'm an ATL. Like I feel like if I was going to like do another show, I might have to like change that name, but it's just so like what I am. And I didn't put a lot of thought into that. So I just started the show and then had like, a couple hundred episodes later, I'm still have the same name. So reginatl.com. Any streaming platform, I want to say, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, anywhere where you find popular podcasts, you shall find me there.
What's the name of your podcast? Is Reginatl,
Reggie ATL.
REGINATL, guys. And I will have all of these links for everybody when we go live with your episode. So as we close out, what is your shameless self-indulgence?
Video games. Yeah, I'm gonna play games as soon as we get off here, Maureen.
I was looking behind you. I thought you were gonna say comic books
it's all like nerd. It's all nerd stuff. So maybe there's like a nerd culture in general. I would say whether it's comic books, Star Wars, video games, tech stuff. There's a very nerd through line in my life, like that goes from like childhood to like current. You know, me and my brother,
Nice.
we played games back in the Nintendo days, and we were playing games just last night. I remember talking to my girl about that. Like, it's crazy just looking back on life, how it comes full circle. Like, we're just not sitting, Indian style in the living room playing games, but he's in New York and I'm in Atlanta. So we're just but we still play games this exact same that we used to. So I would say it's probably my biggest selfless indulgence.
I love it. I remember playing in television, Paperboy. Do you remember the in television?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, beyond Atari Pong. I mean, we thought we were the shit. Like, woo!
Well, the Atari Pong, that was a major situation. That's a breakthrough. You look at it now, and it's funny that you can do that on most like watches. You can play that thing on a watch if you want to, but that was evolution. That's one of the testaments to human ingenuity right there.
You better believe it. Everything that we had as a kid is all in one tiny little phone, a little six by
Right.
3 little box. I mean, and we had Walkman CDs, we had cassette tapes, oh my God, we were a mess. Thank you so much. I had such a good conversation with you. This was really, really fun. I'm so happy that I got to meet you. And yeah, we're gonna stay in touch for sure. Reggie,
sure.
You are fabulous. Hey, listeners, do me a favor and go over to Reg in ATL and go listen to his podcast and give him 5-star reviews and subscribe, because we share the love in the podcast world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You betcha. Also, leave your 5-star review for moi, because we are trying to grow this community and bring more people in and share the love, and really give help and hope to people who are in situations in their lives that they feel hopeless and helpless. And we want them to know you're never hopeless and helpless, and you can get through it like all of my fabulous guests. If you want to contact me, comment, or be a guest, please contact www.life coach Maureen. And you can also find my books on Amazon, and here they are. So my dog,
Nice.
my dog is my relationship coach, and my dog is more enlightened than I am. And your dogs will share with you how to be unconditionally loving and unconditionally love yourself. So thank you for today, guys. I will see all of you next week. Thank you, Mr. Reggie. You are fabulous.
Thanks for having me on. This has been amazing. Thank you.